Janine, would you say a few words, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, and to all my partners here. We all want the same thing. We all want a safe city. We want a safe capital. We want to be able to bring our families here. We want to be able to come and enjoy the history that makes this place great. And unfortunately, we are not in that position right now. And Mr. President, I want to thank you for taking the step that we need right now to make criminals understand that they are not going to get away with it anymore. And I'm not going to stand here and go over and over the cases. But what I can tell you is this. I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill? I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today. But it's not going to end today, because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the State Attorney General, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from DOGE who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them, I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Boy, 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 boy. So, as we talked about yesterday, President Trump was teasing an announcement, a major announcement about cracking down on crime in D.C., okay? Because D.C. is a lawless, liberal shithole.
Do you think that is an appropriate use of those federal resources?
I do, actually. I think it's a disgrace that our nation's capital is crime-ridden. I think it's a disgrace that tourists and visitors come to Washington, D.C. and they don't feel safe. I think it's a disgrace that, roving bands of teenagers are riding, hundreds of dirt bikes around Washington, D.C., shooting guns, shooting off fireworks, and you have these roving bands of carjackers. It's a disgrace. This is our national capital. You shouldn't have to feel that way, whether you live there or whether you're visiting on the streets of Washington, D.C. It's a unique place because it's a federal district. It's not in a state. And I think the president, has rightly decided that something has to be done. It has a very high homicide rate when you compare it to other world capitals. And so I'm anxious to see how far he wants to take this. But frankly, I think for the people who live there and the people who visit there, they're going to welcome extra police presence on the street. That carjacking that happened to the White House staffer the other night, there were a couple of cops sitting there. Had they not been sitting there and witnessed that, I don't know what would have happened to that poor kid. He got beat up by 10 people, a 10-person gang. And so I think the more patrols you have, whether it's park police or whoever, the safer people will feel going around our nation's capital. They exist in a state of lawlessness. I mean, we have blue cities all over this country and blue states that have sanctuary laws where they have encouraged illegal immigration. I mean, that's the problem in California, is that illegal immigration has been welcomed and coddled. And then when you go in and try to enforce federal law, there was, all sorts of unrest and violence and mayhem on the streets. And so that was a situation brought about by the local officials there trying to resist, I think, the enforcement of federal immigration law. In Washington, D.C., everybody who lives there and everybody who visits there on a regular basis knows it's not safe. It is not safe. And there's even discussion in the ranks of the police department there. I think one guy's been put on suspension because they've been downplaying the crime statistics there to try to give people a false sense of security. So I don't think this is political. I think it's about safety, and in the case of California and other blue states, I think it's about the enforcement of federal immigration laws that are on the books, and you have Democrats in those places trying to resist that. I do not understand it.
Right, and I think our capital deserves better, right? Our country deserves better, okay? In fact, the capital of the United States of America should be one of the safest cities, if not the safest city in the United States of America, and anything less than that is completely and totally unacceptable, okay? We need to have higher standards for fighting crime in this country. This is something that I've been super passionate about for years now, okay? And the Republicans are about to set an example out of Democrats, and apparently they're going to show Democrats in these liberal cities how to actually crack down on crime. And that is what President Trump announced today, which is that he is going to issue a federal takeover of the Washington, D.C. police. Okay, he is going to bring in a National Guard, and he is going to stomp out crime and homelessness in the capital city. Okay, we're going to liberate our capital. We're going to make Washington, D.C. great again. Take a look.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. You know, when you say take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think the people in this room, if you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. That where you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. It's getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse.
Yeah, so apparently a lawless shithole is exactly where these liberal reporters want to live, because you have the mainstream liberal media. They are boohoo whining and crying, right? They're having a full-blown meltdown, a crying session. They're on the verge of tears over the president saying, hey, we're going to make the city safer, right? The city that you're living in, we're going to make it easier for you to enjoy the city, right? For you to actually go out, to have fun, to enjoy your life without worrying about being robbed or mugged or murdered or raped by some young scholar, right? I'm just saying, like, who can be mad about this, right? Who can be upset about this? Well, in 2025, right, in the Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs world that we live in, liberals are upset with this, right? The liberal media, they're mad, they're pissed off about the fact that President Trump is trying to clean up a city that they live in. It's really fascinating. Take a look.
Getting reaction from D.C. council members.
We are, Pamela and Wolf. This coming into CNN from Council Member Charles Allen of the 6th Ward in D.C. His post is, quote, the president taking over local control of MPD and putting the U.S. military onto the streets of D.C. under the guise of public safety is wrong. It's an extreme, outrageous, and dangerous move for our city and the safety of all of our residents. He's the first city council member to react to this whole thing. None of them had reacted really last week to this in any real measure. This is the first time a city council member has reacted and come out strongly on this. We're also reaching out to Mayor Muriel Bowser's office and the office of the Metropolitan Washington Police Department for their response. We started to reach out to them while this news conference was going on. No word back from them yet. The mayor has been fairly muted in her comments on this. She did speak out yesterday in an interview, but did not openly criticize the president for this. It's an extraordinary move. We have to point out, never before in American history has the U.S. president taken over control of the Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Police Department. How is this going to work on the streets? How is it going to work from a command and control standpoint? That is a huge, huge question. And, of course, his threat to do this in other cities, we'll see how that plays out. I think you got to see how it really plays out here first.
Right, and we should also note that he talked about moving the homeless population in D.C., right. Thousands of people.
Yes.
Why is this issue, and again, you're going to get into the fact check of what is wrong about his figures or not, but why is this the top of the President of the United States agenda today? And I think that's an important question for us to think about as we think about everything that's on his plate. Why is taking over law enforcement in the District of Columbia? Now, he made the argument as to why, and that it's a capital city, and that the way he sees it is that it is crime-ridden and needs to be changed. But still, why is the President of the United States putting that front and center? So that's a question I sort of try to think about as we put this into perspective. But then, Dana, as you were noting, yes, this is a dramatic moment, but it also feels to me like dipping into a well that President Trump has gone to time and time again in the first term and this term. The tactics here may be more amped up and dramatic, but the going after this city or other cities as sort of crime-ridden, this was the heart of many of the campaigns and political agenda that Trump puts before voters. And so to me, I see him dipping back into a well of something he feels is a strong suit and where he thinks he has stronger footing, the way he does with immigration or border security, which to me also then begs the question, well, what is he a little nervous about over here if he needs to dip into this well right now on this topic?
Yeah. Watch them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any such, so this, and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
Whatever the hell they want, as if police have been not doing anything before this, Eddie. What do you make of that, whatever the hell they want?
Chris, to be honest with you, I'm trying to hold my temper. I think there's an ongoing argument that he's having in his head with Black Lives Matter. There's an ongoing argument that he's having with the questions around criminal justice reform and police reform. It's interesting that he really doesn't really care about what's actually happening in D.C. on a certain level, because he's not trying to get at the underlying root causes. He's not looking at examples of how to address rising crime rates that doesn't require a form of policing that leads to increased incarcerality and the like. Let's look at what's going on in Baltimore. Let's look at what's happening actually in places like Baltimore and Chicago, right? So part of what we have to do is to understand, and Oakland. We have to understand this, Chris, within the context of Donald Trump's racial politics and within the context of his effort to get Epstein off the front pages. I understand David's point, but when we try to treat this as a rational response, then we lose sight of the actual politics that's being played here. And he's actually trying to give his base red meat to get them off of the Epstein story, and it's on the backs of citizens in Washington, D.C. He's going to undermine the democratic process in the district. And so I understand what David is trying to say, but we need to be clear about what Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, so we've reached a level of stupid in politics where you have MSNBC analysts claiming that fighting crime, like, dealing with the crime, the actual crime that is happening today, okay, in our liberal cities, which is a huge problem, is a distraction from Epstein. Fighting crime that is happening today, that is affecting people's lives today, is a distraction from Epstein. That is the level of stupidity that we've got to in modern day politics, right? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out, why is it that the media distracted us from Epstein for the last 4 years, since now all of a sudden they believe that the Epstein story is the most important story in the country right now, right? Everything that Trump does is a distraction from Epstein, right? Secure the border, mass deportations, the economy, right? World affairs, right? Foreign policy, whatever, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Fighting crime. All a distraction from Epstein, right? According to MSNBC, CNN, the mainstream liberal media. Again, this is the level of stupidity that we've gotten to in politics. You have the media and Democrats. They're mad because the president is cracking down on crime. Because the president is trying to make the Capitol safe. Trying to make the Capitol a place that people actually want to visit. Again, these are the same people. They'll turn around and tourism is down because of Trump. Nobody wants to visit American cities because of Trump. No. I think tourism is actually down because, again, these cities are so unsafe that nobody in their right mind will want to visit, right? Again, I haven't found any real good reason to visit Chicago, right? I actually have business interests in New York City, and I've decided that, you know what, I'm not even going to go. I'm just going to try not to go. I'm going to avoid going to New York City, right? I'm going to avoid going to D.C. if I can, right? I'm going to avoid going to California. I'm going to avoid going to Oakland and San Francisco and all these places that, hey, I would like to visit. I would like to go to. I would like to give them my dollars, right? But I can't because they're too dangerous. They're too dangerous. And I don't care about the made-up fake crime statistics that these people always want to cite as justification for not being tough on crime. Because if you actually ask real people in these liberal cities how they feel about crime, they're going to tell you it's the worst that it's been since the 90s, right? That doesn't line up with statistics because the statistics are full of shit, right? People are not reporting crimes the way they used to because nothing is ever done about it, right? It doesn't matter if you call the police. They're going to show up 2 or 3 hours later, and they're probably not even going to report the crime, right? So when you have a situation we're in right now, it calls for dramatic measures in order to fix the problem. And I think one idea that President Trump should look at here, okay, since, again, D.C. has a young scholar problem, right, a youth problem, okay, in particular, a juvenile problem, this South Jersey town is actually fining parents, right, or charging parents, okay, for their kids' bad behavior, right? So they're doing what I have recommended a lot, okay, which is to go after the parents, hold the parents responsible for the behaviors of their children. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
It is Thursday night. I'm Christy Aletto. Gray and Shari have the night off, and the big story on Action News is parents could now face fines or even jail time if they fail to stop their children from breaking the law in one South Jersey town. It comes in recent response to recent incidents where large groups of unruly teens cause chaos at public events. Action News reporter Leland Pinder is live in Gloucester Township with the details. Leland.
Christy, Gloucester Township Day this year was canceled because of what unfolded last year. Officials now introducing this new level of accountability, hoping to crack down on some of that bad behavior. Under a new ordinance in Gloucester Township, parents and guardians of minors involved in public disturbances could face fines or even jail time.
These are your children. Had you governed them a certain way, this ordinance wouldn't be necessary.
The new law is in response to incidents of youth misbehavior, including at last year's Gloucester Township Day, where fights broke out and hundreds of teens caused chaos at Veterans Park and a nearby shopping center.
As a parent, I think it's absolutely necessary.
While some support the move, others oppose it, saying the law could cause hardship for some families.
That may put the parent in a situation to either lose their job or lose finances. Let it go through the courts the way it usually does.
In a statement to Action News, Gloucester Township Police said each incident is still and always will be handled on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the specific situation and the totality of circumstances. Similar chaos has erupted at events statewide in towns like Seaside Heights and Mays Landing this year. In June, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy signed the public brawl law into state code. It allows authorities to charge anyone who starts a brawl. People hope new measures locally and statewide will make a difference.
I have 4 kids, and my youngest, she can't experience like that fun stuff that we have in town because of, other kids acting out.
And this new ordinance here in Gloucester Township lists 28 offenses ranging from felonies to minor infractions like loitering or breaking curfew. Now, if a child is found guilty in juvenile court repeatedly, well, that's when a parent or guardian could face 90 days in jail. Live here in Gloucester Township, Leland Pinder for Action News at 10 on PHL 17. Christy.
Yeah, parents could pay the price. Leland, thank you.
As they should. They should. And again, that's what they need to be looking at. Okay, if Trump is looking for some ideas, I think that this is a good one. These kids who are repeat offenders who continue to do this, nothing is ever done about the problem. Okay, parents don't want to step up and do their jobs. Yeah, they need to be held accountable, right? The adult guardians, the people responsible for these youths, right, these young scholars, they need to be held accountable. So again, the media, they're going to boo-hoo, whine, and cry. They're going to be upset, but nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. They're not going to win this PR battle. I'm telling you that right now. Most people want to be able to go out in public. They want to visit the Capitol. They want to enjoy their family, their friends, their kids. Okay, they want to enjoy all this stuff without having to worry about these criminals, right? And I'm pretty sure the law-abiding citizens of D.C. are going to appreciate the crime crackdown because it will make everybody safer, okay? And that's what needs to happen across these liberal cities. And if Republicans can clean up D.C., if Republicans can make D.C. great again, then that is a massive win for the Trump administration, okay? And it's a massive win for Republicans and Republican governance, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.